I'm really going to think about this now.
For the Washington County Board of Education, and welcome to the Washington County Association of Student Councils hosted forum. My name is Phoenix Doe, and I am a senior at North Hagerstown High School. I've been involved with the Washington County Association of Student Councils since I was 12 years old. I served as the WCASC treasurer my freshman year, the Maryland Association of Student Councils treasurer my sophomore year, and the Maryland Association of Student Councils vice president my junior year.
Welcome. My name is Zane Poffenberger, and I am also a senior in high school, but at Boonesboro. I am currently the student government president at Boonesboro, and I have been a member at large for WCASC since the 8th grade.
On behalf of the Washington County Association of Student Councils, Zane and I would like to sincerely thank each of you for attending tonight's forum. All candidates for the Washington County Board of Education were invited to participate in this forum through email invitation in early October. We are very happy to be moderating tonight's event with all who can make it.
Topics that will be covered in tonight's forum include technology and digital citizenship, support for minority students, student leadership in WCPS, high-stakes testing, and extracurriculars.
Listeners at home, if you wish to ask a question during tonight's forum that is within the boundaries of these topics, you're able to submit questions through to the Ustream feed that you're currently watching this forum from. You may also submit questions using the contact form link on the WCPS website homepage.
A video of this forum will be available on WCPS's YouTube channel, My WCPS 411, and will be posted at the completion of the forum.
The questions that will be asked tonight during the forum were created through discussions at the Washington County Association of Student Councils October General Assembly meeting held at Western Heights Middle School.
With that said, if our candidates are ready, we will begin our forum. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. We will start with you, Mr. Bickford, and when you are ready, you may go.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks so much for having us. I think it's wonderful that the students are organizing this. I think it's one of the reasons we're very excited to be here. I'm sure I speak for everyone. It also is a testament, I think, to one of the reasons Washington County is a jewel, the public schools is a jewel in the state of Maryland because of how it respects its students. We have a student member. I always enjoy seeing her take part in every single vote and being acknowledged. And it's an honor to see how active the Student Government Association is. When I was a student at North High, this is bringing back memories, but my freshman year, I was Student Representative of the Year, which scared me when I was the little freshman who got called up to the stage to collect his award. But it was definitely a very fun experience to be part of student government, and it's been fun to see how much it's grown. I want to give you a little bit of my qualifications for school board. So I grew up in Washington County. Attended the schools from Winter Street to Western Heights to North Hagerstown High School. Go Hubs, Phoenix. Sorry, Zane. And I left for a while, but came back in part to raise my daughter in the Washington County school system. I still think it is one of the best in the state, if not the country, and I think we get the Blue Ribbon Awards to show evidence of that. One of the things I'm most impressed about is the technology that we make available to our students, and I hope to continue that as a school board member, keep moving the school system forward. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Brightman.
Thank you.
Yep, Mrs. Brightman, yes,
Thank you.
2 minutes.
Again, this is a great opportunity. I hope this is the first of many, not just during election season, but I would like to think that the board could meet with the student government on a regular basis. I know our student rep invites board members to that, but something maybe more formal in exchange of thoughts and ideas. And what that reminds me of is this past summer, I was at a leadership program in Chicago, and Dr. Daggett was the keynote speaker for that. And he told all of us, it was a meeting of board members from around the country, and he said our most important role as board members is to put students first, and that would make adults very uncomfortable, but it was our job as board members to really bridge that and to be sure that we always put students first. So in that way, and again with my earlier remarks, is what a great opportunity for the students of this county to work with the board members to really help reimagine or rethink the education experience. I know we've made a big effort to move small learning communities forward, whether it's the Public Service Academy or Barbara Ingram or the Clear Spring Ag and Environmental Science. But I'm sure that you as the student government and representative of schools throughout and students throughout the county could really bring some great ideas to us to help us rethink and reimagine how to better serve all of you. So I look forward to that opportunity. Thank you.
Mr. Martin.
Good evening. Thank you very much for hosting this evening's forum. I was very pleased to hear that this Student Government Association wanted to do something like this. I think it's important that we as board members or prospective board members hear everyone's comments and perspectives and concerns. We all bring different backgrounds to our roles that we play. I've been a big believer in my career that it's very helpful to consider different perspectives and to try to build consensus so that we have a common vision and agenda. We really are, as a system, all about the students. That's why a school system exists, and student success and helping students be successful in their lives and careers, I think, is probably our primary mission. I look forward to the opportunity to bring a different perspective to the school system. I grew up here in the county. My family's been in the county for a number of years, and I was fortunate to be able to find gainful employment working here in the county as first in public accounting as an auditor and got my CPA, and then for most of my career in local government, first as town manager in Hancock, and then a 30-year career with the city of Hagerstown as finance director for 27 of those 30 years. I've been retired 5 years, and I'm still young and vital at age 63, and I continue to give back to the community. I'm involved with a variety of boards, everything from our Art Museum Board, the Barbara Ingram School for the Arts Foundation. I've recently, in January, got on the hospital board. And I'm anxious to provide my financial background and expertise to the school system. But not just that financial expertise, but also a way that I think we can collegially and civilly and collaboratively move our system forward. We've had great beginnings with the technology initiative. I think we need to move forward into the new 21st century.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Mr. Ridenour, your 2 minutes.
Thank you. It is always a pleasure to be here with students. I told Dr. Wilcox before the meeting, I said, I think this one scares me more than any of them because I know you guys are sharp. You're not going to be snowed. I've been a lifelong resident of Washington County. I'm proud to say that. Of my 65 years, 61 of them have been in the county. Took 4 years off to try to go to college. I should say. I taught for 30 years, history and government, and at that point, after 30 years, I decided to try something else. So for the last 13 years, I went back to school and got certified, and I'm now a certified residential real estate appraiser. And it's helped, to be truthful with you, for this job. I decided I wanted to do this because I feel very strongly about public education. It means a lot to me. But I think the perspective of working in a private sector and working in a public sector gives you an opportunity to see both sides of the ball game and understand it a little bit better. I have been serving now for 12 years, which means I was serving when you guys were rolling into first grade. And you know and I know that things are changing and have changed dramatically in those 12 years. And they're going to continue, and I think at a much more rapid pace. So my desire, there are a lot of things that we'll talk about as we go along, but my desire is to make these changes as seamless as possible for the young people, for our teachers, and for the public. So it is a pleasure to be here with you guys tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ridenhour. Mr. Stauffer?
Okay. Again, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'd just like to say I could have taught Peter. I don't know about Don. I could have taught Al. Wayne, I'm not sure about, but I'm the oldest one here at 70 years of age. I was told a long time ago, when you get in front of a class of students, just be yourself. Don't try to be phony, because they'll find out very quickly. It's all about the kids. That's what it's all about, and that's what I've pretty much spent 2/3 of my adult life doing. I'm a county resident for all my life. I've done many things in my life. I've been a factory worker. I've been a construction worker. I've been a professional musician also, although part small time, but still I got paid for playing music when I was much younger. After college, I enlisted in the Army Infantry and served in Vietnam as an infantryman. But as an educator, it's all about the kids. I did this in everything I did working with children for 42 years. Writing lesson plans, being a class advisor, being a coach of soccer, head coach for 23 years, although I never played the sport, being a mock trial advisor. In fact, the other day after the Rotary meeting I attended, two of my ex-students came up, and one of them was Kirk Downey, the deputy county attorney, who was on some of those mock trial teams back in those days at Williamsport. I think only one school has that today, and I think it's perhaps North Hagerstown. I'm not sure, but I believe it is. I taught interactive television, advanced placement in American history, broadcast from Williamsport High School, taught students at Clear Spring and North High via that. It was over cable channel 6 and so forth. I helped write the government HSA. I was the only teacher west of Frederick County selected to do that by the late supervisor Ed Kugel. So I've got a lot of experience, a lot of varied backgrounds and so forth. And why am I running? Very simple. It's all about the kids. I still have an interest in education. I have grandchildren in the system and so
Stauffer.
forth.
Thank
you.
for your 2 minutes. Thank you.
Well, thank you to all the candidates. We will now begin the question and answer period of the evening. Candidates, as a reminder, you will have 2 minutes to respond to a question if it is directed at you. Follow-up questions will be open to all candidates and are optional. Any candidate who wishes to address a follow-up question will have 1 minute to respond.
We will begin our first question that will go to Mrs. Brightman, Mr. Martin, and Mr. Ridenhour. And the question is, how do you believe the civic responsibility of student volunteerism be incorporated into the culture and/or curriculum of our schools? The first to respond will be Mrs. Brightman. Whenever you are ready, you will have 2 minutes to respond.
Repeat the question again, please.
The question is, how do you believe the civic responsibility of student volunteerism be incorporated into the culture and/or curriculum of our school system?
I think it's important when we talk about college and career readiness, we should always add civics to that, or citizenship. I think public education as the cornerstone of our republic has always been about the constitutional balance between civic virtue and self-interest. And that's why as we develop citizens and future citizens and work with our students, I think it's really important for them to give of themselves and learn how it's so important to do something rather than be something, and to value the giving back to the community. Certainly there's programs that we have, the constitutional study of We the People, which is a very important academic aspect. I believe it's some of our course work as well as extracurricular. That's certainly, and I do know that we have student hours that have to be given, I believe 75 hours during a student's career. And every year we celebrate those students who go far beyond that with the hours they give back to the community. So again, we're talking about helping develop, let me phrase, helping students develop a well-balanced aspect to their lives. And I think giving back to the community is certainly an important part of that.
Thank you, Mrs. Brightman. Mr. Martin, the same question, which is, how do you believe the civic responsibility of student volunteerism be incorporated into the culture and/or curriculum of our schools?
I think student volunteerism and civic engagement is extremely important for all of us. And I think I'm very pleased to see us dealing with that in our student organizations. I think the requirement that students participate in some kind of community service is a good one. I think it develops great habits for lifelong civic engagement. Unfortunately, nowadays I see so many people disengaging themselves. Life gets very busy, and unfortunately, many people aren't exercising their civic responsibilities in a democracy of voting, of learning about what the issues are and what the candidates stand for. I think that's important that we do that. I think it's important both from a personal development standpoint that students be engaged in some kind of volunteer activity. It's a way of building teamsmanship and accomplishing shared goals, looking at a mission, and I think it helps us feel good about ourselves, giving us some purpose and meaning in life beyond ourselves. So I'm very pleased to see the community service component that's part of our graduation requirements. I'm glad to see that clubs and organizations like the Student Government Association exist to allow students an opportunity to become engaged. I know when I was in high school, I was fortunate to be a senior class vice president. And for me, that was a way of helping me deal with some of my introversion as a student and to get comfortable in my own skin. So I see it as a very positive thing and something we should continue to foster and encourage more of.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Mr. Ridenauer, the same question, which is, how do you believe the civic responsibility of student volunteerism be incorporated into the culture and/or curriculum of our schools?
Well, we already have it to some respect. In some respects, we have the responsibility of student learning hours. It's taught obviously in government and history and other subject areas. But I think what we have to take a look at and what we have to convince our students is that it's more than just a responsibility to get the student learning hours. It should become a habit, and not just doing them to do them, but doing civic duties or being a part of something because you want to be part of something. It means something to you. It becomes part of who you are. There is a year ago, I believe it was, Harvard University started a program, and they're taking a look at an expansive program, taking a look at how they judge students that are coming into them, that are applying to their institution, and the student learning or the things that they put on their resumes. They've gotten to a point that they're tired of looking at a resume that has 25 different student activities. They want to see the students coming into their schools having 1, 2, 3 things that they're passionate about, that they're not just doing it because it has to be done. They're doing it because they want to do it and they're learning something from it. Okay? And I think that makes perfect sense to me. Why do you guys do this? Because it means something to you. You're passionate about it. And that's what I think colleges are looking for. That's what I hope you guys are looking for. How does this activity that you're involved in, this community activity, how does it impact you? Not only what does it do for everybody that you're working with, but what does it do for you as an individual? So I think it becomes not just the school system telling you or being involved in it, but you being involved in it because you want to be involved in it.
Thank you, Mr. Ridenauer.
All right. The follow-up to this question is open to any candidate who wishes to respond. You will have 1 minute to respond if you choose to. Our follow-up question is, do you believe that 75 student service learning hours are a valuable component of the graduation requirements? Since Mr. Ridenauer was the last person to respond, we will move on to the person to his right, and then open up the floor to every candidate who wishes to respond afterwards.
mean to,
Stand.
just, you meant,
I mean,
I mean,
this,
yeah,
Oh, this way. I thought you meant this way. I was gonna say.
my right, your left.
Okay.
stage left.
You know, I guess the thing that disturbs me about the 75 hours is that, and I don't know if this has changed or not, but it seems to me that when students came out of middle school, they had something like 35, 40 hours because of activities through various classes and so forth. Personally, I think if you're going to have student service learning hours, they ought to be done outside the school day and so forth, because you've got 4 years to compile 75 hours and so forth. I would say this, though. It's getting harder and harder in society to get people to volunteer. I'm president of the Williamsport Lions Club, and it's very difficult to get younger members in the organization. Most of the members are 50 or older and so forth. It's very difficult to attract the younger generation for whatever reason and so forth. But yeah, I think it's important to volunteer, and I would hope that your generation and so forth will do it once you're out of school.
I can take it. I remember when Kathleen Kennedy Townsend first brought up the idea, and I think she was the one who championed it through the state of Maryland. I was not in favor of it because I thought it was one more requirement that you would force on students. But through the years, I've seen the benefits of it. My daughter was one of the students who got to go to a special honors program at North High because she put in more than 270 hours. So I love the fact that students who go well beyond the 75 hours are honored for that. I am aware that some students can find ways to accomplish their 75 hours, and it might not necessarily be in the spirit of true volunteerism. And but I think for the most part, kids are getting an opportunity to get to know some of our nonprofit organizations in the area and some of our needs in the area. And for the kids that I've seen, at least, they're glad to do it. So.
Is there another candidate who wishes to respond to the follow-up question?
I'll do a follow-up on that. I think the 75 hours is a great requirement. I think the requirement does allow flexibilities for students that might be challenged in different ways, as was alluded to earlier, that you can do things in school if you don't have the opportunity because of personal circumstances to be able to get outside the classroom. But I do encourage students to try to go outside the classroom to broaden their experiences. That's one of the things I think the requirement of engagement in community service allows students to get out of their normal comfort zone and to experience something with a different group that I think will hopefully be a life-enriching experience for them.
Thank you, Mr. Martin, and thank you for all the responses to the direct question and follow-up question. Moving on, our second question will be from Mr. Martin, Mr. Ridenauer, and Mr. Stauffer. And the question is as follows. Are more small learning communities needed in WCPS? If so, how would you envision greater expansion of small learning communities? And if not, why do you believe that the expansion of small learning communities does not benefit WCPS? Mr. Martin, we will start with you.
This is a 2-minute response?
Yes,
Okay,
yes, sir.
thank you. I am a big believer in small learning communities. I am very pleased that we have several, I believe, in the county already. I'm involved with a foundation as chairman of the Barbara Ingram Foundation, and I'm very pleased to be part of that. And I've seen personal evidence with Barbara Ingram of the benefits of that small learning community for those students. Before that, I was involved with the Finance Academy at South Hagerstown High, and I'm still involved at Williamsport now. That hasn't been as successful as the Barbara Ingram community, but I think still gives great advantage. Being part of that as a past chair, I'm just on the board now, I saw how it was engaging students in a common vision and theme and help prepare them for either careers in the finance area directly or going on to get finance or business type education. Other communities that I think have been very successful are Public Safety Academy, the farm programs at some of the other high schools out in the county, and I think there are other opportunities there. The Tech High School is a good example with the new higher tech things going on there. I think as we look at the needs and see future direction in our community, we need to make sure our education stays relevant for the students. And I think these small learning communities are a way to engage students, help them feel passionate and engaged in their learning. And I think the individual test scores are showing the benefit of these communities in delivering a quality education at a cost that's comparable or lower than the larger big box high schools.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Mr. Ridenauer, again, the question is, are more small learning communities needed in WCPS? You have 2 minutes to respond.
I've been here since, or on this board since Barbara Ingram was at its infancy, from the very beginning. And I am a firm believer in small learning communities because, not only because I've seen it successful there, but I'm seeing it successful in other areas. I think these small learning communities enhance the educational opportunities and enhance the educational experience for all of our kids. I believe wholeheartedly that the key component for us as educators is to engage our kids, to make certain that they are doing something that means something to them, that gets them excited and gets them involved. Barbara Ingram is a classic example, but there are others. We have now the Public Service Academy. We have digital gaming at Western Heights. We have expanded magnet programs. We have the FHA Ag program at Clear Spring High. We have the IB program at North. Tech High has expanded their programs, moving them more towards 21st century job opportunities. So, yeah, I believe we can continue to add them as we go along, but I think we have to be strategic in how we do it. Make sure that we're finding things that we know kids are interested in and they're going to be beneficial to them. On top of that, as Mr. Martin said, I don't know if we can afford to build a high school. I think this is becoming, these small learning communities and other elements and technological elements are the wave of the future. Frederick High School is now paying $115 million without paying for the land, $115 million for their high school. Washington County can't afford that. So, yes, I believe that they are the wave of the future.
Thank you, Mr. Ridenauer. Finally, Mr. Stauffer, again, the question is, are more small learning communities needed in WCPS?
Well, it's already been reiterated that we do have small learning communities such as BISFA, International Baccalaureate, the Public Service Academy, the Ag and Environmental Science Academy at Clear Spring, Tech High, and so forth. But I take a little bit different viewpoint of small learning communities. Why can't we have small learning communities in our regular classrooms? By reducing the number of students in regular classrooms. During the campaign, I've heard this from many teachers, class size, and although it's not even across the board in all county schools, give you one example. There's a classroom of kindergarten students in this county, 26 kindergarten kids in one class. That's too many. So I think we need to work on that, perhaps start out by reducing class size in K through grade 3. Try to get that down. I mean, studies show that anything below 20 students is good. The ideal was 15 to 1 and so forth. But we need to direct money, I think, in the budget towards decreasing class size in regular classrooms. Those are small learning communities in addition to these other great programs. And I back these programs. But we need to take care of the rest of the students who are not in the magnet programs and the other programs. And by working together, perhaps with 6 more board members and the professional staff and the superintendent, and possibly involving the State Department of Education with some type of initiative, we can decrease class size. See what it does to test scores.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer.
All right, there will be no follow-up question for this round. Our next question goes to Mr. Ridenauer, Mr. Stauffer, and Mr. Bigford. Mr. Ridenauer will have the chance to respond to the following question first. Do you believe that mental health assistance opportunities currently offered to students are sufficient to meet the needs of students? You have 2 minutes to respond when you're ready.
Okay, one more time. I didn't hear the first part. I
right.
apologize.
Do you believe the mental health assistance opportunities currently offered to students are sufficient to meet the needs of students?
That's a good one. I told you I was worried about
Glad you got
this.
it. Glad you got it first.
Okay, let's make it short. I think we're offering what we can at this point. I think we watch it very carefully and are addressing issues as they come. Do I think it's enough? Probably not. It's a different society we live in today than we did when I was in school. We have to find out what the issues are and how we can address those issues. I mean, we have programs in place, but this is a tough one, because sometimes people fall through the cracks, and that one child falling through the cracks is one too many. So do I think we have enough? Probably not. I'm not sure where we go from here. We still have, that's a good one. I really don't know. I'll be perfectly honest.
All right, thank you, Mr. Reidenauer. Mr. Stauffer, you have 2 minutes to respond.
Well,
whenever
I'm
you're
not
ready.
going to try to sit up here and give an answer. I'm not quite up on this. I know we do have mental health programs. In many schools, we have what they call the Summit program, which is to help students. We have special classes for students with anger management problems and this type of thing. But be quite honest with you, I'm not up on just what all the programs are there in WCPS. Agree with Mr. Reidenauer. It's a problem in today's society because of families with one parent and so forth. But that's something if elected to the board, I'll certainly study up on and find out what's going on with it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Mr. Bickford, you will have 2 minutes to respond to the question.
Yeah, listening to their answers, I'm sitting here thinking that we're blessed because I'm not familiar with the problem, even though my gut is to say yes, they do. Actually, my gut to the answer is probably no, there are not enough services. We probably do need to do more, specifically with so many of the issues that we see around the country. So again, I don't know the specifics either. I do know that there seems to be an effort towards more mediation. I've heard of conflict resolution in some schools, and then I also remember peer counseling. I don't know if that's still going on, but just giving certain students the option of talking to a fellow student who's got a compassionate ear and not necessarily an authoritative figure is one of the programs that seemed to be effective when I was in high school, and I hope that continues. But I would say, too, I can't wait to hear more about it.
And so the follow-up to this question is, how do you believe that students should be informed about the opportunities that WCPS offers for mental health assistance? So any candidate who wishes to respond will have 1 minute to do so. So Mrs. Brightman.
This is a huge issue, and it's wrapped around the discipline regs that were mandated from the state and the feds a few years ago. It's about discipline in the classroom. It's about kids coming into school and in kindergarten with anger management issues and behavioral issues. It's teachers having to deal with a lot of these mental health issues. Brook Lane, which is someone we partner with at several of our schools through some grant money that we have, are trying to get with these students on a one-to-one basis at school to help them work through some of these issues. I think we need to look at restorative justice as one of those opportunities. There's some school systems are rehiring retired educators to come in and man restorative justice rooms. There's talk about a dip instead of a PIP. Can somebody give me their time? I'm sorry.
I want to hear the answer.
Thank you, Mrs. Brightman. Any,
I'll just make this one comment. I think we have to be careful because of privacy laws and so forth as to how we go about informing these students and getting them involved in everything. So,
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Martin.
Well, I'll just say, as someone not on the board, and I'm not familiar with all the services that we do have available, but I do think one of the things that we need to do as a system is make sure that people are aware of the resources that we do have, that folks are using them if appropriate. Life is very challenging. My wife is a Head Start teacher in pre-K in Berkeley County in the Martinsburg area to the south of us, and just families and I'll just call it the social situations can lead to some very challenging environments. And our kids need to be ready to learn. We need to make sure that people are given opportunities to learn. But on the other hand, on the campaign trail, I'm hearing instances of disruptive children in the classroom, and that we need to find ways of providing services to them and to others so that we all have a good educational experience. So I think we need to be doing more to publicize what's available and building those resources.
Thank you, Mr. Martin.
I
Mr.
just-
Ridenhour?
Add a couple of things very quickly. As someone said just a couple minutes ago, I think it was Mr. Stauffer, we have to be careful. But we have to find ways that we can gently guide our kids into these programs or into the services that they may help them. As far as discipline was concerned, Ms. Brightman was speaking to it. I saw a program recently. It probably cost next to nothing. We spend an awful lot of money on special services, but there was a program in Baltimore, of all places, where disruptive elementary kids were, instead of putting them in detention or in suspending them, whatever the case may be, they put them into yoga or yoga classes, and they've seen their suspensions go down to nothing. So it's a program that it's obviously is pretty easy to implement. It would be something that's worth looking into.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ridenhour. And if there are no following questions, our next question is as follows. What do you envision as the role of the student member of the Board of Education? Mr. Stauffer, Mr. Bickford, and Mrs. Brightman will have the chance to respond to this. Starting with Mr. Stauffer, you will have 2 minutes to respond whenever you're ready.
let me write it down here first. Well, when I went to school, we didn't have a student member on the board. In fact, it was many years before a student member was added and so forth. I think the role that they serve is a good link between this board and the 22,000 students that are in WCPS. One thing I think that might be interesting to look into here in Washington County, if I'm correct, and someone correct me if I'm not, but I think Montgomery County has recently added or has a voting member, a student member who actually votes. And I don't know on what items he or she is allowed to vote in this type of thing, but that might be something to look into for the future.
All right, thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Mr. Bickford, you have 2 minutes to respond whenever you're ready.
I think obviously the main role is to be the link between decisions that are made here at the school board and with the student body, but also, as I said in my opening statement, it's symbolic when you look up here and you see that not only do we have a student member, but they're an active part of the discussion. President Brightman always after a vote acknowledges what the students' vote was. I think that shows that there is a healthy respect for the student body, and it opens that line of communication between making sure that the decisions we make here are the right ones for the student body. The fact that we recently had the calendar committee, and I think 2 student members were on that, was fantastic, because you're as busy as adults these days, if not more so, and have just as much of a say in the calendar that is passed as we do. So.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Mrs. Brightman, you'll have 2 minutes to respond whenever you're ready.
Thank you. The student board member is an essential and I would say even critical member of the board. I've served had the honor of serving with 8 different student board members, and they've each brought a different perspective or skill set to their work. One thing I've always felt is that they understand their role, and that is to bring a voice to the student, the voice of a student to the board work. And I think back to my earlier opening comments, putting students first means we need to listen to students. I mean, that's where it all begins. We're not doing things to students, we should be working with students. And I would say that I have worked with several board members, and I'm not trying to call Ms. Greenwald out, our present board member, but I would tell you that her understanding of the role and responsibility of a student board member and her recent effort to defend the voice of the student board member took significant courage. And it's courage that I think should be recognized by her fellow colleagues as well as her fellow student government members. You've worked with her. I think this is her 2nd year on the board, and I know there's a deep bench of other students coming forward. And I have to tell you, I was impressed with her courage, and I know that there are other student members willing to defend the voice of the students.
Thank you, Mrs. Brightman. And so the follow-up to this question is as follows. How will you support the student member of the board in carrying out their duties? Whoever would like to respond to that has 1 minute, starting with Mr. Martin and going to the right.
Well, I think obviously time needs to be built into that student's schedule so that they're able to carry out the duties and responsibilities of that role of representing the student population on the board. I think the students also need to be included in the conversation and engaged. I think our system is doing a pretty good job on that right now, at least from what I've observed in the board meetings I've attended. And I think it's important that we allow opportunities for the student representative to share the information and to solicit input and feedback from the broader student population, the Student Government Association, because I think the student voice is important for the board to hear. And I think we need to build on what we've started, continue that, and ensure that that voice continues to be heard and represented in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Martin.
Yes. I think for me, it comes down to 3 elements. First and foremost, listen to what they have to say. Ask questions about their perspective. And then respect their perspective and respect the work and respect the position that they're in. I think those are the things that we can do to support our student representatives. And I think also, you know, I've been to a couple of your meetings, having the opportunity not only to hear what our student rep, but also what the members of your board and your school representatives have to say. I think we had a very good discussion one time in regards to the heroin epidemic when I was there. And it's always fun for me to hear what kids have to say, because a lot of times they'll surprise you with the depth of understanding and their passion about what they are talking about. So, you know, those are the things that I see as helping them carry out their duties.
Thank you, Mr. Ridenauer. Would any other candidate like to? Mr.
I'd
Stauffer?
like to say something. I spent 40-some years listening to student concerns. I know this may not be a good example, but as a coach, when we went to halftime and so forth, the first thing that I used to ask, what are you players seeing on the field that we coaches are not seeing from the touchline in soccer? Because they get a different perspective out there in that field than we do standing along that touchline and so forth. So I can't think of any reason why, if elected to this board, that I wouldn't have a dialogue with the student board member and listen to their concerns and try to work with them and so forth. It's very important.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Mr. Bickford?
I mean, I would just add what pretty much what everybody else has said, that just we make sure that we give the student member an opportunity to feel comfortable to say, I need this, I would like to see this. You know, I'm sure they're given a iPad, correct, and the tools that they're needed. But
Orientation.
yeah, exactly. So I know if I was up here, I'd want to know if there was something bothering them that they felt like we could address.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. And,
All right,
Ms. Brightman, would you like to add anything? Or
Sure. I'll just say that we do have, Maryland Association of Boards of Education do have an orientation for student board members from around the state. We're always very supportive of that. We actually had some diversity training as a board, and Ms. Greenwald was involved directly with that and attended that. She's been attending work sessions, any of our public meetings. She's been very involved, very engaged, and I think that sets a great standard for future service on the board.
thank you, Mrs. Brightman.
All right, thank you, everybody. Our next question asks, how important do you believe student input should be in shaping policy and decisions made by the Board of Education? If this is important, why do you believe it is important? And if it is not important, why do you believe it is not important? This question is from Mr. Bickford, Mrs. Brightman, and Mr. Martin. Candidates, you have 2 minutes to respond, starting with Mr. Bickford.
I think we'd be crazy to say it's not important. But absolutely, I believe that student input should be very important in the policy decisions that are made. And I think at this time, it's certainly observing the meetings as I have, it seems that they are taken into account. You know, as I said earlier, like the calendar committee was a perfect example of that, where you had 2 very busy students who took more time out of their schedule to come to those meetings and had some big decisions to make, considering the governor had shortened the calendar, and they had to make probably some unpopular decisions. I don't know how students feel about losing a big part of their spring break, but I'm sure some students are against it. So that was important to hear what they have to say. And every decision that's made here, just as teachers get an input on decisions that are made and support personnel, students should have input as well, and it should be weighed very heavily.
Mrs. Brightman, 2 minutes to
Sorry, I'm
respond.
writing some notes down. Again, this seems very similar to a few other comments I've made, but to go in a little bit deeper, one example that impressed me is that several student members, along with Ms. Greenwald, did a survey of the PARCC exam that was given last year, and they were able to bring that data back to the board and give a panel discussion to the board. And to me, that's very relevant. Again, this is about the students' future. Obviously, it's important for each generation to pass knowledge and information and education down to the next for many reasons. One, I think it's a moral imperative, but it's also an economic necessity. We want citizens who can give back to the community and who are productive, successful members of our community. But having that kind of feedback from the students on a test, I think, is significant. Secondly, our diplomas, I mean, our measure of success as a board is a diploma at the end of 13 years. And that diploma has to stand for something. It has to be rigorous, it has to be relevant, and that should drive all of our education policy. And with the 21st century, what is relevant is changing. So we need to be very mindful of what students, I mean, we're training, helping students learn to deal with work that we won't even know what it looks like by the time you get into the world. So it's giving you those foundational skills, plus some hands-on experience, plus your civic training. And to do that well, we need feedback from all of our students. And there needs to be a one-size-fits, a customized fit for that.
Thank you, Mrs.
Thank you.
Brightman. Mr. Martin, you have 2 minutes to respond whenever you're ready.
I think it's extremely important to get input from all the stakeholders involved in an organization. And certainly in education, students are our primary stakeholders. Obviously, we've got the staff here at the central office, we've got our teachers and other staff members in the system. But a key is really how the students feel about what is going on. I think student engagement involves people feeling they have a voice in what's happening with their education. I think obviously we need to have a process of getting input and feedback. And I'm a big believer in my prior life that in an organization like the city, we were very successful with 4 different bargaining units having labor management committees of looking at management, for instance, doesn't always have all the best ideas. We found very often the people that were involved in the trenches out in the field, whether it be the firefighters, the police officers, our parks workers, had wonderfully good ideas to share. And I think the more we can engage people in education, of understanding, awareness, and collaborative processes, the better the outcomes are and the more innovative the ideas are. If we're talking about how to engage students, I think we're nuts to be doing that just from a top. We need to be engaging students themselves. And what do you find are things that are interesting you, and how can we better reach other fellow students in making the education experience a better one? I think it's critical. Otherwise, you're limiting yourselves and missing a very big opportunity to improve our whole process and system.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. And so the follow-up question to the question, the student voice is, how will you ensure that students from diverse backgrounds are represented and celebrated in our school system? So any candidate who wishes to respond has 1 minute. And
Well, I think I'll add on to that since it's different than what I just answered. I think we need to look at our population in our different schools, and we need to be looking at encouraging folks to step up and to become engaged. And I don't know if we have a problem of getting a representative diversity of engagement and involvement in our different activities in our different schools. But certainly that's something that I'm hoping we can address if it is an issue. Everyone should have opportunities to become involved in things that they should be representative of their group. If we have a significant minority population in a certain school, we need to be making sure that they're engaged in different ways. And we need to do it in a way that doesn't stereotype. And I'm saying, saying African Americans might be more athletic, for instance. We need to be looking at, we engage students in things that are interesting to them regardless of their ethnicity.
thank you, Mr. Martin. If any other candidate would like to.
Just very quickly, and I agree with a lot of what Al's saying, but I think encouraging kids to get involved is crucial. I'm not sure how we do that. I think the people that can be the most successful in engaging other students would be students themselves. You guys are the ones that would encourage your fellow classmates or your fellow students to get involved. Convince them that, hey, this is something that that will benefit you in the long run, or that your ideas will benefit how things are done here at the board in the long run. So I would be counting and I would be encouraging the student leaders to try to expand the circle that they are involved with to include, to be more inclusive and get more and more kids involved.
Thank you, Mr. Martin, or Mr. Ridenour. Mr.
Just playing off what Wayne said, I think he said it's up to you guys to get kids involved and so forth. And I think it's up to students like yourselves and others to take an active part in trying to deter bullying against certain types of kids in our school system. I think that's a very serious problem. I've heard on the campaign trail some stories, and basically the stories I'm hearing are the school is reluctant to get involved in it. if that's so, I think it's something we need to look at.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Mrs. Brightman?
Yeah, I'm aware that student government is tackling this issue as well. It's, I think, one of your top priorities, so I applaud you for really approaching this in that way. I think cultural literacy, appreciation of diversity comes through time together, relationships, and building that trust. I think you may be aware that the board voted on an ad hoc committee on diversity. And on that, the membership, we have students involved with that one. So I'm hopeful that your work as a student government organization could bring some of that knowledge forward to the service on this ad hoc committee. This can't be done in isolation. We need to do it with all of our partners throughout the county, certainly including students.
Thank you, Mrs. Brightman.
All right, Mr. Martin, Mr. Ridenauer, and Mr. Stauffer, what is your opinion on the clause in the Board of Education's proposed fundraising policy that does not allow any door-to-door sales? Where do you believe the balance between the safety of students and the ability for extracurricular programs to successfully raise funds lies? Starting with Mr. Martin, these three candidates will have 2 minutes each to respond.
Well, I'm a big believer that we should empower folks to do as much as possible in their own development activities. I do think student safety is a concern, and door-to-door sales in today's environment certainly can be a challenging situation from a public safety standpoint, given some of the circumstances and situations that have arisen. I remember as a kid myself going around selling candy bars, I think in elementary school and maybe junior high, and you never quite knew what to expect even back 50 years ago when you knocked on someone's door. Fortunately, I think bad situations haven't happened, but certainly today it's something that I think as a system we shouldn't be taking risk on door-to-door sales. That said, I think other fundraising activities need to be encouraged, and I think we ought to be as open and broad as possible. I heard some of the earlier discussion with the fundraising committee of the board talking about banning or perhaps limiting raffles and other things that adults might be doing to help support our schools. And to me, I think we should try to be as broad and permissive as we possibly can, and allowing organizations, friends groups, foundations, other PTAs and other support groups to provide as broad a support as possible. That support and people's engagement in helping to support these activities is a way of getting buy-in and ownership and helping to support our system and providing, I think, needed enriching and supplemental funds to make our student experiences better. So I'd like to see the fundraising policy be as liberal as possible while still protecting student safety.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Mr. Ridenauer, you have 2 minutes to respond whenever you're ready.
I can't agree any more than I do with Mr. Martin on this, but the policy committee has wrestled with this now for months. The first read came back, and I think we sent it back to them basically saying, this doesn't work for a lot of us. There was one element of it, I think it was the raffles, where I said I can't live with this, because those raffles are crucial to a lot of the programs that that go on in the school and outside of the school. So I think the door-to-door, obviously we got a scare this year, and that it really was an eye-opener. It wasn't something that was on any of our radars, that you go to a door, you knock on a door, and somebody shows up with a gun in their hand. That's a no-no. I don't want any of our kids to be involved or anywhere near something like that. So, I am skeptical about door-to-door. The other things, I think they now have broken it down into 3 separate elements, which I believe is a step in the right direction. I'm anxious to see exactly how they're going to work. We want to protect our kids. We want to protect the integrity of our fundraising adult communities. We don't want any, we want to make sure that the money that's raised gets to the place it's supposed to go and not into the pocket of someone who tries to take advantage of it. So, I do believe that we're going to come up with something. I think it will be, protective of our kids and supportive of our kids in the long run.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ridenhour. Mr. Stauffer, you have 2 minutes to respond whenever you're ready.
Okay, well, when I must be ancient because I don't remember a lot of fundraisers when I was in elementary school. Maybe I just wasn't aware of them. And in high school, I don't remember having to sell anything. Having said that, it seems to me that back in those days, though, because my father was a railroader and a lot of times wasn't home because of his work schedule, when I was very young, I would have to accompany my mother to PTA meetings, and it seems to me that the PTA meetings at Washington School in the West End, which has been closed for years, they would be held in a gymnasium, and they would be packed with parents and so forth. So I think one thing about the fundraising is perhaps PTAs, PTOs have to get more active. It seems that parent involvement drops down by the time you get to high school and so forth. Again, I would reiterate what Mr. Martin and Mr. Ridenhour have said about protecting students. I taught at Williamsport High School for 41 years, and I was shocked when I heard about the incident in the fundraising, what they call their Tag Day parade out there and so forth. That is a big fundraiser for them because they give you a little tag and they just ask for a donation. Many people, though, instead of giving $1, give $5, $10, $20, this type of thing. Also, I'm glad to see that it's been broken down into 3. I've attended some of the policy committee hearings on this, and I think it will be simpler by breaking it down into 3 and so forth. And again, I know at some of the course things like at Williamsport, they have raffles and so forth. I think those things have to be allowed.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. And so moving on, all 5 candidates will have 1 minute to respond to this question, starting with Mr. Ridenhour. And the question is, do you support the decision made by WCPS to equip all students in grades 3 through 5 with iPads? Why or why not?
3 through 5.
It's a pretty easy one. Thank you. It's about time. Yes, I do. Now, I will tell you flat out that I thought the first iteration of the technology program was the better program. It was a little more expensive at the outset. I believe that the cost would have narrowed between what we're doing now and what we hoped to do in the first place. And let me explain why. I see you sitting there, and what is that, an AirMac?
Yep.
That's what we wanted to put into the hands of our high school students. Because I believe, Dr. Wilcox believed, and so did a lot of other people, that that's what you're going to be using. You're going to be using that type of technology as you move through high school, as you move into college, and as you move into the workplace. I personally believe that it made more sense to me initially to do a leasing agreement, an arrangement, because technology changes so quickly. Why do you want to have a piece of technology that you have to hold on to 4 or 5 years, because that's the replacement cycle? Is it only 1 minute?
Yeah.
Darn.
Thank you for your response. Let me just correct, it is grades 3 through 12th grade, so
I was
I
gonna say,
apologize for that mistake. But Mr. Stauffer, you have 1 minute to respond.
You know, I pay bills online. I use a computer and so forth for many, many different things. I think placing technology in the schools is a good idea. Having said that, I still believe that technology is just a tool. It is not the end. It is a means by which teachers can deliver instruction and so forth. And I would hope that in the technology use in our schools, that there is a balance, because I will guarantee you that I don't know that any student is, they might, but I don't know of any student who's going to go 30, 40 years from now and say, oh, I remember my first iPad and so forth. They will remember their teachers, but I don't know if they'll remember their iPads. But it is a tool, and it's the 21st century. But it is a means, not the end.
Thank you, Mr. Salford. Mr. Bickford?
Yeah, I wholeheartedly support the iPad initiative. I was so glad to see it passed. I agreed at the time that I think probably high school would benefit more from laptops. I work in an environment at a marketing firm that we use our laptops all the time. But you know, it comes down to cost, and there's certainly ways to adapt the iPad if you need a keyboard. And that's another one where you know we want to hear from students. It was so hard to see the iPads passed out because my daughter's senior year, she got an iPad about 2 months. And immediately the complaints start coming in. Oh, we have to put covers on them. They're hard to, we can't adapt them. Some of the apps we like went away. So obviously it's an evolving process, and that's one thing that I hope students are speaking up and trying to help improve it, because I know teachers and the administration certainly want to see those iPads used as effectively as possible for students.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. And Mrs. Brightman, 1 minute.
Yes, thank you. I would say that technology goes far beyond a simple tool. To me, it's the very fabric of our world right now. This is what, even at my age, everything is done on a device right now, whether it's business, whether it's community work, whether it's board work, it's banking, it's learning, it's TED Talks, it's whatever. People throughout the world live with this, whether they have indoor plumbing or electricity. They have a mobile device or a way of connecting with the world. We have a bus that's going to be Wi-Fi connected here shortly, so when students are out on an hour-long trip, getting home or to school, they will be connected. If they don't have Wi-Fi at home, there are pucks or discs available that we can give them so they don't use their parents' data. Sorry, it's a longer story.
Thank you, Mrs. Brightman. Mr. Martin?
I do support the decision to equip students with technology. I think it's the thing that we need to do, and I think we need to, it's a start. Now, the next step will be to take and make sure that we are adequately supporting that technology. I think it's a great idea to be leasing it rather than buying it, because it will change very rapidly. 5 years ago, I didn't have one of these. I couldn't do without it now, and it's enabled me to be very mobile, that in my retirement, whether I'm at the beach in Delaware or Ocean City, here at home, in a board meeting, whatever, it's on silent, but I'm in touch with someone and I'm connected. And I think our technology is extremely important in our classrooms. I think it gives us the opportunity to deal with snow days, perhaps in a more effective way than we have in the past. I think the big secret now will be dealing with implementing the technology, making sure we have adequate bandwidth in our schools and places that we're using it, and that the apps are appropriate and useful, and the teachers have adequate training on incorporating this into their lesson plans, and the students understand it as well.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. The next question will be asked to Mr. Stauffer, Mr. Bickford, and Mrs. Brightman. Starting with Mr. Stauffer, each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to the prompt. How do you envision digital citizenship being integrated in our schools?
Say that again.
How do you envision digital citizenship being integrated in our schools?
Well, I know what digital citizenship is. It's the norms and so forth that for proper internet use and so forth. There are agreements you have to sign that you used to have to sign for computer use and agree to in our schools when I was in the system and so forth. I'm just not sure what you mean by how it can be integrated. I guess everybody has to learn what is proper use of the internet, what isn't proper use of the internet, what are the rules and regulations that and behavior that are connected to those things. That's all I'll say about it,
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Mr. Bickford?
My wife's a media specialist in Frederick County, and that's actually one of her primary goals. It's a good plug for media specialists and their necessity in our school system, because one of her biggest jobs is teaching elementary students how to be good citizens on the net. I think integration has already begun. And it is just what Stan talked about. It's modeling good behavior online, preventing bullying online. One of the things that my wife and I were talking about this before tonight's event, and she said, the other thing is to make sure that students, especially high school students, get the access that you've earned to certain, I know sometimes it's very hard to get on things like YouTube and really do research. So once you've shown that you can handle going out there to the World Wide Web, by all means, you should be given access to it for your research and your projects. Because I know I've made presentations at schools, and sometimes it's hard to get onto and show certain videos, and I know that's a tough thing to navigate, but I think we're getting to the point where we can make that an easier process.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Mrs. Brightman?
Yeah, thank you. Part of our tech plan rollout was to ensure that all of our students and teachers received a digital citizenship training. So that's been a big part of this entire tech plan. I would add to that information literacy is something we all struggle with. I think current events and what we see on social media, we need to decipher between facts and fiction, which becomes more and more troubling. I think going back to primary sources is certainly an important part of this. I do think that part of our training is we need to help students and adults realize that whatever you put on a social media site will be there for the rest of your life. And it could affect many of your choices going forward. And I think we need to be very cognizant of that.
Thank you, Mrs. Brightman.
So our next question.
Is there a follow-up comment allowed?
I apologize, but there's no follow-up,
Okay.
Mr. Stoffer.
Why?
So the next
Nothing I wanted
question
to
that we have for all the candidates, each of you will have a minute to respond. And the following question is, what is your opinion on Dr. Wilcox's proposition to make up snow days at home using the iPads? So we will start with you, Mr. Martin, and you have 1 minute to respond.
Actually, I mentioned it in my last comment that I was responding about the iPads. I think it's a great idea. To me, our learning is more about process and tools, and I see the opportunity available for more online learning. Our teachers are still going to be extremely important to facilitate the process, to help work with students on an individual basis, but this is a great opportunity to use our investment in technology so that if someone isn't able to get into school because of the weather, we will have an opportunity to access lesson plans and individual learning processes and plans at home or wherever students are. And I think obviously it'll still be important for students to attend classes, and attendance will be important, but this gives us great flexibility in using the technology.
Thank you, Mr. Martin.
Mr. Reinauer?
My opinion is it's a brilliant idea. We have the technology. What was the movie where they said, we have the technology? We do. We have the technology to do this. Now, obviously, at the lower levels, at the K through 3, they will not have, or K through 2 will not have that technology, but we can work around it, and I think we can be successful in doing that. So I think it was a great idea. I think it's going to benefit us in the long run. I mean, I can tell you firsthand that, I just finished 42 hours of classwork online in the last month. It's something that's happening now. It's going to continue to happen. We might as well take advantage of the investment that we've made to utilize the time that our kids are sitting home during a snow day. So yeah, I think it was a brilliant idea.
Thank you, Mr. Reinauer. Mr. Stauffer?
Well, I hate to be a pessimistic voice, but there must be a new type of student in Washington County, because I know what I used to do on snow days, and it wasn't do schoolwork. I used to go out and sled ride for hours upon hours. So I don't know if students are going to do that or not. It might be worth the experiment and so forth, but I'm not from Missouri, but you're going to have to show me that that's going to work.
Yeah, I can feel the tidal wave of reaction on social media if you start telling students they're going to have to work on snow days, because that is one of the fun parts about snow days. But realistically, I work for a company. We're more than welcomed on a snow day if we're going to have a hard time getting into work to stay at home, but we're expected to be online working. Knowing Dr. Wilcox, I'm sure this would be a trial phase. Maybe some of the IB students who are probably going to be working anyway would try it out, and there would be some reasonableness involved. I don't think it would be a blanket policy right away. I don't want to put words in his mouth, Dr. Wilcox, but so I think it's something to try, because again, if you're out in the working world, you're expected to work even in the worst of weather.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Mrs. Brightman?
Thank you. To me, this is just another aspect of thinking outside of the classroom. Learning doesn't happen just in a school. It happens everywhere around us in every different possible way, and technology allows us to expand that opportunity. Not to mention our constraints on our calendar right now. Using a digital day for a snow day will allow us to be out of school on June 8th instead of June 15th. So I think there would be some incentive. You can load your iPads ahead of time for certain students who may not have Wi-Fi. As I said, there are opportunities to send pucks and disc home with those individuals that need Wi-Fi hotspots. So I think this is exciting. I think it has real potential, and my concern is that the state is not as far advanced as Washington County is right now. But I'm hoping that they'll see that this is an opportunity and will maybe let us do this as a pilot program.
Thank you, Mrs. Brightman. The following question is for all 5 candidates, starting with Mr. Ridenhour. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to the following. Why do you believe that you're the best candidate for the Washington County Board of Education, and what do you believe sets you apart from other candidates who are currently running? You have 2 minutes whenever you're ready.
Okay. I thought that was going to be my closing speech.
I think it is.
Well, it is.
I'm not sure why I'm any better than anybody else in anything. I think that's rather smug and arrogant to say that I'm better. Why do I think I will benefit the board by continuing to serve? It's because I've been serious about it from the outset. I've been a member now for 12 years. I've missed one business meeting in those 12 years, or work session, or executive session. I try to come prepared. I do my homework. I try to get questions answered ahead of time so we can move quickly and move forward during our business meetings and not be bogged down because our staff hadn't had a time to prepare for the questions that might come up. And personally, I think we've done a lot of great things in the 12 years that I've been on the board. 1 minute. We've built, I think it's 8 schools, 8 new schools in that time frame, all of them under budget. We've given raises. We've given 12 steps in the 12 years that I've been on the board, plus about 20-some% on top of that during the worst economic time that we've had since the Great Depression. We've accomplished a lot of great things. The tech program, upgraded Washington County Technical High School. We've done a lot of magnet programs. We've instituted the IB. We've expanded the AP programs. I'm proud of what we're doing. I'm proud of the fact that Washington County schools are respected throughout the states for their innovation and their results. So I can't take credit for all of that. All I can say is I was a part of it. And I'd like to continue to be a part of that because I don't want to see us move backwards. I want to see us continue to move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Ridenhour. Mr. Stauffer, you have 2 minutes whenever you're ready.
Okay. I'm just jotting down some notes here. I'm not sure I really know how to answer that question. I'm really somewhat shy in certain situations, and one of them is saying why I'm a better candidate. I agree with Mr. Ryden. I don't know if I'm better or not, but I think what I bring to the board that no one else sitting up here, I walked in the educator's shoes for 42 years. 42 years, 2/3 of my life, till I retired at the age of 66 4 years ago. And I worked in all kinds of situations with all kinds of people. I think having only been retired 4 years, I still maintain a lot of contacts with a lot of teachers at all levels, grade levels, elementary, middle, and high school, and so forth. I think that's what I bring to the board, is that experience and knowledge that there are things out there that need to be handled. For example, I'm keen on these small learning communities, but I think you got to make them in the regular classrooms and so forth. I would close with this. Learning, like Mrs. Brightman said, learning is a lifetime experience. I'm a lifetime learner. Right now I'm rereading The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. I read that years ago in high school, but I found a copy on the bookshelf the other week, and I thought, I'm going to read it again. So you don't learn everything inside of 4 walls of a classroom. But one other thing I want to say is, we're in the 21st century, but there's an old saying that the past is prologue. Let's not forget what we learned in the 20th century. I recently became an avid tutor at Williamsport High School. They asked me if I would be interested. I said sure. And I had to laugh as the lead teacher gave me some papers. One of them said, using the Socratic method. And I started to chuckle. She said, why are you chuckling? I said, oh, at the title of that paper. And she said, what? I said, we're still using a 2,000-year-old teaching method? You got to be kidding. So.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Mr. Bickford, you have 2 minutes whenever you're ready.
I'll do something unusual and say I don't think I'm the best candidate. I think Al Martin is. And I'll tell a story of why. I worked with Al when Al retired from the city of Hagerstown as the finance director. I was on the Barbara Ingram Foundation at the time, and I know there was a big scramble from many nonprofit organizations to recruit him. And we got him. I think were we with the third phone call, Al? I don't know.
Something like that.
And I was so glad to get him because he has experience with big budgets, huge budgets. He's navigated those budgets. And he came in and looked at our budget. And the Barbara Ingram Foundation is not in the millions, but it's a sizable budget. And yet he saw one fund that was sitting there making very little money. And he said, you know, you have access to this fund, and if you move it over, you'll make more money. And we did that, and it started making, Al will know better than I do, but 10% a year. And that enabled us to set up a very active student grant program so that students who can't afford something can apply to the Barbara Ingram Foundation, whether it be maybe they need help with a field trip bill or they need tap shoes, that kind of thing. We were able to divert that money to that program. So I think Al's the best.
That's your answer?
That's my answer.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Mrs. Brightman, you have 2 minutes to respond whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much. I guess there's a couple points I'd like to make. One is that this school system over the last 6 years has really moved from what I would say has always been a good, solid school system towards a great school system. We've shown leadership in the state, in the country. We have teachers winning awards all over the country. We have a superintendent winning awards. We have measurable improvements with our literacy. And I think it's important that you not only have board members with 30 or 40 years of education experience, I think you need individuals with business background, with nonprofit background, maybe some with science or a legal background. I think you need that diversity of perspective as well as students on the board. And I think what I bring as a certain skill set, I'm a landscape designer, is the imagination. the ability to imagine what this county could be like, what this county should be like, what opportunities we should be giving our students for a rigorous and relevant education. If we can't imagine it, we can't make it happen. And my concern is that if we get stuck in reverse or in neutral, that we're not going to ever make that final leap into the 21st century. And that would be a shame for all of the students and for this county. So I think imagination would be what I would put out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Brightman. Mr. Martin, you have 2 minutes to respond whenever you're ready.
Well, I want to thank Peter for that wonderful endorsement. I think all of us would do a great job on this board. I think it's important, though, that we have a good base to build on. I think it's important for a board to have different backgrounds and perspectives. We all bring different talents to the table. Peter brings public relations and communications. We have educational background. Donna brings a business background. I bring a public finance background. I was very pleased to have the opportunity at the city to be working with a budget there of over $160 million when I was there, and a complex operation with utilities and a multitude of public services. Our school system is our county's largest governmental budget at $300 million, with 95 of that coming from the local level at the county, and then the bulk of the rest coming from the state and then some federal sources. I think it's important for us to be able to work together as a unified body to develop a shared vision. Look at where we are, where we've been, the successes we've had, and then look at where we want to be in 3, 5, 10 years from now, and then work together collaboratively to get there. So I think consensus building, working together, we don't know who we're going to be working with in a democratically elected board, but I think it's important that we develop a shared vision, that we get together and come to consensus, and that we work collegially and civilly together. And that's what really makes a good board. And I've been on those boards before, and I think if I'm elected to this board, as I'm sure many of the others here will do, we'll strive to do what's best for our community. Our community and our citizens, our future children and future citizens deserve nothing less than our very best to make sure we make this the very best system that it can be with the resources we have available. And that if we don't have those resources, we be creative in figuring out how to find them.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. So at this point, we are now finished with the question and answer portion of this evening. So all candidates will now have up to 2 minutes to deliver any closing remarks or comments before we conclude our forum. So we will start with Mr. Stauffer and then go backwards alphabetically. So,
I thought I
Mr.
gave
Stauffer.
one. To be honest with you. Let's see. What can I say for 2 minutes here? I guess you heard what I said before. Again, I have a hard time talking about myself, but people who really know me, deep down know that I'm pretty frank. I'll say what I've got to say. Now, I will disagree with people, but once I disagree, it's over. It's done. We move on. And so I think that's what I bring to the board. I will perhaps be a dissenting voice at times. There's no doubt about that. I disagreed on the snow day usage and so forth. But I thought that was bringing a practical answer. I really feel that way. I don't think that will work. But I work with people. I did it for 42 years. I continue to work with people as president of the Lions Club and with Lions throughout the state of Maryland and so forth. I just don't want us to get so involved that we forget about everything from the 20th century that we've used. There's a plane in the Air Force arsenal called the A-10 Thunderbolt. It's called the Warthog. It's an ugly-looking thing. It flies at 450 miles an hour. The Air Force doesn't like it, but they can't get rid of it because it serves a vital job that the 21st century fighters can't do, and that is it can turn at low altitude, it can fly at low altitude, it's hard to shoot down, you can repair it quickly, it can land on short runways and stuff. My point being that just because we're in the 21st century we shouldn't forget everything that's out there and all the old ways and so forth and all those types of things. I still maintain that technology, and I have one of those things in my pocket too. It's on silent, and I use it. But I also do things from hand. I write on legal pads before I go type it on the computer. I have to do it that way. I have better thought that way. So I don't want us to give up the past. The past is prologue. We need to build on what we did then in the 21st century.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Mr. Ridenour, your 2 minutes.
Thank you. I did 2 minutes earlier. As I said before, I believe we've done some great things in Washington County in the 12 years that I've been a member of this board. I believe we've made our children's educational experience something we can all be proud of. I'm certain, I've said this before, that not every decision I've made has been popular, but I think you have to look at the totality of what I've done. Because I am the senior member of the board, I've been here the longest. And I would ask you to take a look at all 12 years, put it together and say, that's not a bad package. We are entering a time, whether we want to go back to the past, of course we learn from the past or we wouldn't study history. But by the same token, change is occurring, in the blink of an eye. What was great technology 3 years ago, you're not using it anymore. You change your phones every year. So, I want us to keep moving forward. And I want, as I said before, I want to have a hand in that transition so that we can make it as easy for our students as possible. I hope you can support me and others who have a similar vision of moving forward and not backward. And as I said in an earlier meeting or an earlier forum, we should never forget that students we educate today will, in time, look back on their school experience and say, these were the good old days. They'll be different, but these were the good old days. And then from generation to generation, everybody's going to feel the same way. But we're moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Ridenour. Mr. Martin, your 2 minutes.
I've been very fortunate to have a 32-year career of public service working here in the community I grew up in. And I feel blessed by that. I've had some great opportunities as I've been moving through my life, from getting work study and grants to go to college, to leaving college debt-free, to being able to find gainful employment, and now in retirement to stay engaged with a variety of different community organizations. I'm excited with this opportunity to run for the school board because I think it is a very important thing in our community, probably one of the most important organizations we have, certainly the biggest government budget, but it impacts our community's future, what we're doing with education and the opportunities that we provide. We have a good base to build on, but we need to learn from the past, have a vision for our future. Technology is changing at an ever rapidly increasing rate. I look 5-10 years from now, we'll be dealing with new issues like artificial intelligence, self-driving cars. These are things that now have been visionary in the past, but we're on the verge of it happening, and that rate of change is going to be ever accelerating. I look forward to the opportunity to bring my finance background and skills, my ability to help bring different viewpoints and ideas and I'll just call it different perspectives to the discussion, that we can disagree and work through things without being disagreeable, that we find ways to build consensus and a common shared vision to move us forward. And I look forward to the opportunity to see our system continue to build on its successes and move forward with great strides into the future. We are so fortunate to live in a great community of Washington County, and I look forward to being a part of that.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Mrs. Brightman, your 2 minutes.
Thank you. Imagine what it would be like if kids rushed into school as quickly and as fast as they rush out of school. wanting to be there, wanting that opportunity to explore, to discover, to have hands-on experiences. That's why I serve, and that's why I'm asking to serve again for another 4 years, to be a part of imagining what that looks like, what it would feel like for our students. And you can look at it a lot of different ways. I look at it as being non-linear, where we actually customize education for each child based on their needs. We're dream makers instead of dream breakers. We have immersive technology. Instead of seat time, we look at mastery of something, of competency. Teachers are becoming coaches and mentors and facilitators. What a great time for teachers as professionals to really take some risk and think outside of their comfort zone. Year-round school. Why limit ourselves to what the governor's executive order gave us? Why don't we try something very innovative? And that would help some of our students who are challenged. What about dual-purpose facilities? That it's an entire community facility. It's used 24/7, year-round. The end of subject silos. Who in the world ever handles biology and chemistry and botany and physics separate? They're all sort of jumbled together, and we take parts of each discipline and use them and apply them when we need them. That's what we need to do. It's not all about a 4-year degree. It could be certification, it could be badging or diplomas. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Brightman and Mr. Bickford.
So here's what else I like about Al. I'm just kidding.
You gave up the last one.
No, thank you for the opportunity to have a closing statement. One of the reasons that I decided to run for school board is because I'm very passionate about education, and one of the things I've been blessed to be able to do is be involved in the schools, whether it be as part of the We the People program, and 2 years ago I got to judge Teachers of the Year, and that was really a fascinating experience. It was such an honor to go and see the best teachers that we have, and to see the students come alive under their leadership. Last year I was part of the group of students who came and spoke to thank the school board for passing the opportunity for an expansion of the Barbara Ingram program downtown, along with the other programs in the academic hub. And that was exciting to see students revved up about something and speaking to their school board. So I guess it makes sense that I'm excited about education because I've been raised by teachers. You know, my father could be retired, very easily retired, but he still teaches alternative night school. He works day and night at an alternative high school in Long Island because he believes in teaching. And my wife is a teacher in Frederick County, and my daughter just graduated the school system. So I feel like I'm immersed in education, and yet it stays exciting to me. So if I could get the opportunity to be part of the leadership of education in this county, I'd be very happy to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford, and thank you for those closing statements.
All right, everybody. The Washington County Association of Student Councils would like to thank all citizens and candidates who participated in tonight's forum. As a reminder, a copy of tonight's forum will be posted to WCPS's YouTube channel, My WCPS 411. Best wishes to all candidates in the upcoming general election. Thank you.
Thank you.